Alright, in this video we'll cover angle relationships. There's a couple angle relationships here that you're going to want to memorize and be familiar with so that you can answer some of these questions. Alright, the first one we have here are complementary angles. Alright, complementary angles are angles that sum. Remember that when you see the word sum, you want to think add up to 90 degrees. So I've got an example here of complementary angles here. So if you take a look, we have QRS and angle SRT. Right? Those two angles are complementary. But do note, like in this example, these two angles share a side. That doesn't have to happen. So as another example, you could have an angle. We could have these two angles. They're not adjacent to each other, they're not next to each other, right? And they're still complementary as well. The next set of angles we have are angles that sum to 180 degrees. So again, here in this example, we have two angles that add up to 180 degrees. Right? We have this angle DEF and angle GHJ. Right? And again, like so in this example, these aren't adjacent to each other, but you could have supplementary angles that are adjacent to each other. So we could have such as, and those two angles would be supplementary angles as well. The next angle pairs that we have are vertical pairs. Vertical pairs are non-adjacent angles formed when two lines intersect. So you got to find two lines that are actually intersecting and going through each other, right? So for an example here, right, angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical, or are a vertical pair. And angles 2 and angle 4 are vertical pairs. Whereas in this example, I don't see any vertical pairs, right? Because I actually don't have two straight lines intersecting here. So there are no vertical pairs here. And don't forget that vertical angles are congruent. So the last angle pair that we have are linear pairs. Linear pairs are adjacent angles, meaning that they're next to each other. And their opposite sides form a straight angle. Straight angle means 180 degrees. Something to remember too, linear pairs are always supplementary, which basically means they add up to 180. So for example, right, we have angles 1 and angle 2 here. They form, they're adjacent because they share this side. And then their sides that they don't share form a straight line, hence linear. So angle 1 and angle 2 are a linear pair. In this 9 example, right, angle 1 and angle 2 aren't a linear pair. They share a side, but their opposite sides don't make a straight line. So those two pieces are not, they're not a straight angle. All right, let's take a look at some examples here. Measure of angle 1 is 40 degrees, angle 2 is 30. What's the measure of angle 4? So we've got some things we want to label here. Angle 1 is 40 degrees. Angle 2 is 30 degrees. We want to figure out the measure of angle 4. So what I would actually do here is try to figure out angle 3 first before we try to figure out angle 4. And it looks like we can figure out angle 3 because this red angle here is a 90-degree angle. So angles 2 and 3 are complementary, meaning they add up to 180. So, I'm sorry, not 180, 90. So that means angle 3 is 60 degrees. And I can see now that this angle is a linear pair with angle 4. This angle here is 130 degrees. I got that by taking 40 plus 30 plus 60. And then 180 minus 130 gets me 50 degrees. So the measure of angle 4, we took 180 minus 130, and we got the measure of angle 4 to be 50 degrees. All right, next example. So I've got two straight lines intersecting. We need to figure out what is x and what is y. So usually when I have just two straight lines intersecting, I'm going to mark up the picture right away. These two angles are equal because they're vertical, as are these two angles are equal because they're vertical. So we can figure out what x is immediately because those two angles are equal. So 2x plus 25 equals 3x minus 10. All I have to do now is just solve for x, and I can figure out what x is. So x turns out to be 35. Now, in order to figure out what y is, I can substitute that 35 into one of the expressions, and then realize that these two angles are a linear pair, so they should add up to 180. So now that I did the substitution into this equation, I should be able to then solve for what y is. So y turns out to be 85. All right, and those are our angle pairs.